thank you very much.
We love you, Dr.
Michael and Ryan, thank you very much for that introduction, and I'm very pleased to see such a nice crowd and such a nice welcome. Thank you. The revolution is alive and well. Somebody asked me why I'm not on your campus today. I said, well, I heard there were a lot of young people here who cared about liberty. Before I get started, though, I want to introduce my wife and my granddaughter that's with me. My wife, Carol, and my granddaughter, Linda, is behind me. I guess you know there's an election going on. I hear we're going to do very well in California. The media keeps telling me, isn't it all over? Isn't the campaign over? I don't know. It's half over. If you were running a mile, we've done 2 laps. And I sprint at the end. Now, we have a ways to go, but the campaign for liberty is going to go on. You know, our campaign has something to do with a revolution. It has to do with an idea whose time has come, and nobody can stop an idea whose time has come. The idea of liberty is alive and well. It's what made America great, but for some reason or another, 100 years ago, they sort of forgot about it. But it's been revived by a new generation who cares about the cause of liberty and peace. People keep asking me, why do the young people care about it? I said, I think they are recognizing they're getting a bad deal. What are they getting? A lot of debt they're inheriting, a lot less freedom than previous generations have had, and also they end up graduating from college and they're having trouble getting jobs, and they wonder why. Well, there's reasons for it. Believe me, it has to do with the economic and the political system that has been corrupted and has to be changed. You know, we ran into an economic crisis here 4 years ago. Somebody asked not too long ago about the difference between running for president 4 years ago and now. I said, it's a difference of night and day. Because people recognize that the financial crisis, which was on our doorstep 4 years ago, is here, and it's serious, and it's big. At the same time, it's been many years that I have been trying desperately to stay out of wars. I'm trying to get out of it, get the wars to stop, and the American people now... And the American people now are with us on that issue. It's over 70% of the American people said, it's time to come home, time to get out of Afghanistan. It has no purpose for us to send more troops over there. And then when you think about the spending, you can't not think about how much we spend overseas. It's approximately $4 trillion worth of debt that has been added up because of the foreign adventurism of the last 10 years. So even if those individuals out there that still believe that we have to be over there, the other Republican candidates advocate and criticize Obama for not doing enough. They want to do more. And the whole thing is what are they going to do it with? Where are they going to get the money? How long are they going to be able to borrow it from foreign governments to pursue these wars? So it's coming to an end. All great empires end for financial reasons. We don't have to worry about being attacked militarily. We are strong and we can take care of ourselves. But I tell you what, we're not taking care of ourselves at home very well. And that is what we have to be concerned about. You know, we all, when you go into the military or into Congress or the presidency, we take an oath to obey the Constitution against all enemies foreign, and we handle that pretty well. But we're supposed to look at the domestic enemies as well, and that's where our real threats are today. We have a government now essentially out of control. We have, for a long time, our presidents have used executive orders to pass laws. Just recently, the president said, well, Congress is acting too slowly. I want this regulation passed. I'll just write an executive order. Well, that's illegal. But one thing that is legal is if you have a constitutional president and you look at all the illegal executive orders, you can repeal all of them by an executive order. We got into our crisis 4 years ago as a consequence of spending too much and borrowing too much and regulating too much and printing too much. And guess what they've been doing for 4 years? They have been spending more, taxing more, regulating more, and printing more. And they think they're going to get out of trouble that way. And guess what? We still have our recession going on. We still have our problems, and the deficit is exploding. Our country now is the greatest debtor in the history of the world. We owe more money to foreigners than any country has ever had, and yet we're supposed to be bailing out the world. Even today, as we speak, our government, our Federal Reserve, are laying plans to bail out Europe, buy Greek debt and Spanish debt. No! It's impossible. It won't work, and yet they're still embarking on that. I think the main problem that we got into is a long time ago, our country and the people in charge lost an interest in what liberty was all about. They were very interested in the fruits of liberty, because the fruits of liberty, when you have a free society and sound money, you have a lot of prosperity. But they concentrated on the prosperity, which is wonderful, but they forgot about where the prosperity came from. They thought it came from the government. They thought if you had a good lobbyist and you could redistribute wealth, you could benefit. And the tragedy is they did for a long time. But now the Treasury is bare, and there's a lot of problems, and we have to get back to producing wealth if we expect to be a wealthy nation once again.
All right! Yeah! Plenty of gold in California!
When we had wealth, it wasn't so bad. They could talk about compromise. We'll compromise this. Somebody wants a weapon system. We'll pay for that. Somebody else wants some other social program. We'll compromise and do that until you run out of money. And then, all of a sudden, what happens? The lobbyists and the special interests become more aggressive and more aggressive, but what do they have to go after? It's a shrinking pie. The pie is just about gone, and that is why there's a conflict in Washington, why you're not going to see this resolved. Just think of last summer when they were trying to resolve this budgetary problem. They were going to get together, and they couldn't resolve it, so they said, we're going to create a super committee, and they're going to do it. And they made a super mess out of the whole thing.
What a joke!
But just now, you know, we know that the current administration wants to spend even more money. But the Republican alternative has been proposed, and slightly better. The deficits don't expand quite as rapidly, but they're talking about way out years. They have proposed automatic increases. All they ever talk about are cuts in the proposed increases. They're not talking about real cuts. I'd like to make the point that what we need to do in the very first year, we should cut the budget by $1 trillion.
Yeah!
But they keep telling us that, no, the only problem is we don't have compromise. Well, the compromise worked fine when there was a lot of money and they compromised on spending. But they're not going to compromise, they're just going to fight more. And it isn't so much that the two parties have different philosophies, but they have different special interests. And they have different desires to hold power. So the whole effort is to have power and pay off the lobbyists who have the most interest. But there's not going to be a solution. What we need today is a coalition of people who believe in liberty for various reasons. We need to bring people together with these ideas. And this is the reason I talk about freedom a lot, because there are so many who understand freedom from an economic viewpoint, that we should have a free market and sound money, but they don't understand that freedom means the individual has freedom too for social reasons as well. Then, of course, if we'd have followed the founders' advice and minded our own business and not told other countries how to live, maybe we would have more friends around the world rather than enemies around the world. But we are told constantly that all we need, and I've been pressed for this all the time, how are you going to compromise? You have such firm beliefs. Yeah, I said, what are we going to do? When the president announces that he's going to assassinate American citizens, how are we going to compromise on that? Just assassinate a few at a time? Or what? I would say there is no compromise. Presidents have no authority to direct an assassination of an American citizen, or where he is or what he's been charged. about the recent National Defense Authorization Act? And now the military can arrest American citizens under suspect of being associated with some group that might be doing something someday. They can be arrested by the military, put in a secret prison, denied an attorney, and kept indefinitely. There's no way you should compromise with that. That's a clear principle you should stand opposed to. You should stand for the cause of liberty and against that. What about the monetary issue? Should we compromise on the monetary issue? I would say we've compromised on the monetary issue for 100 years. Starting in 1913, there was a big compromise. They brought about the Federal Reserve System. Now, you either obey the Constitution, which says only gold and silver can be legal tender, or you allow men in secret, men and women in secret, print the amount of money that they want to bail out their friends and bail out the world to the tune of trillions of dollars, and they won't even reveal what they've done. I would say there's no compromise on that. Paper money doesn't work. It's always failed. It generates the funds to fight the wars and to run up the deficits at home and continue the welfare state and bail out all the special interests. So I would say that's not where you want to compromise. You need to bring people together. The cause of liberty will bring people together, and there's no reason why we can't keep this message going, because the reception is growing by leaps and bounds by the people who are interested in this message. You know, it's been said that you don't have to wait until you have a majority. Majorities are never what moves the country. People who are determined and have beliefs, strong beliefs, and ideas move the world. Ideas do have consequences. But you need a small group of people that are irate and tireless and will work and spread the brush fires of liberty in the minds of men. That is what we need today, and that is what's happening, fortunately, for us. But you know, since 9/11, I think in many ways we've gone backwards as far as protection of civil liberties. Our civil liberties are under threat. Ultimately, that should be the test. You have economic liberty and you want prosperity, certainly. And you have foreign policy and monetary policy. But everything can boil down as, what is your concept of liberty? Where does liberty come from? For me, it comes in a natural way. It comes in a God-given way. It comes as a gift. It doesn't come from our government. If you're going to have a government, the government should be there for the purpose of protecting liberty, not undermining liberty as they do. Because there was a total misunderstanding of exactly how 9/11 occurred and why it occurred, and that we were told that the reason it happened was that the people that came here, they hated us because we were free and prosperous. That is not true. They came here for other reasons. And the tragedy is that it was used as an excuse to do a lot of things they had wanted to do all along. For instance, there had been, for over a decade, they had been looking for an opportunity to invade and overthrow our former ally, Saddam Hussein, in Iraq. So we were told that Al-Qaeda was in Iraq and they had nuclear weapons and they were about to attack us, on and on, all built up in lies, and get the American people pumped up with it war propaganda. Turned out to be not true. It's a mess. It was a mess over there. We lost a lot of eyes, spent many, many hundreds of billions of dollars, and it's ongoing. It's not over there yet. And this is the reason that we have to take a position to understand. Just think of all the problems we've had since World War II with the excess of war and the absence of peace. Mainly because they have done one thing. We have had men and women in presidency and Congress who have not followed the rule of law, and the rule of law says you can't go to war without a declaration of war. Secretary of Defense the other day on national television was being interviewed, and he was asked about where he got the authority. He didn't come to Congress for the authority to go into Libya and a proposal to go into Syria, which they actually are already there. He said, well, he got he'll get it from an international body. He'll get it from the United Nations or NATO. And it is because of our careless regard for the rule of law that has led us into so many of these things, whether it's the economic problems we have, the monetary policy, the welfare state, or the international crisis that we have. But it's coming to an end. It's going to come to an end for financial reason. It's going to give us an opportunity, just as they saw it an opportunity to see a crisis come, to expand the role of government. We're going to see this as an opportunity to shrink the size of government is what we need to do. You know, on January 1st this year, a lot of new laws came into existence. Just a small number, 40,000 new laws on January 1st. As if that is our problem, that we don't have enough laws. I would like to be the first president to get rid of 40,000 laws in 1 year. And I think I'd start with some of the drug laws that exist in this country. We have 5% of the population. We have 25% of the prisoners in the whole world. Yeah. I don't think the Americans are that. I don't think we're that bad people. I don't believe we are. I think if it's a victimless crime because it's a bad habit, they don't need to be in prison. Maybe we ought to think about treating people who are taking too many drugs as we treat people that take too much alcohol. Maybe they ought to be treated like patients rather than criminals. But of course, we've had a chance. We've had the compassionate conservative in charge for a few years, and out of compassion, they said, well, the federal law always overrules state law. So if a state law gets passed, it says that sick people can raise their own marijuana and take care of their own problems and not hurt anybody else. And the law says this, the state and the federal government comes in and overrules this and actually arrests people that are sick. And so this makes no sense whatsoever. Drugs are dangerous and bad. Prescription drugs are a lot more dangerous than the illegal drugs because you have more addiction. We need to reassess who's responsible. Who's responsible for our lives? I'd like to think you should be responsible for all your own money. If you have a right to your life and a right to your liberty, you ought to have a right to keep the fruits of your labor, all of it. So the government shouldn't tell you how to spend your money. But if it's your life and you own your own body, if we allow Americans, as we have traditionally, we allow people to deal with their spiritual life, deal with their hereafter, that's a rather serious subject. We allow people to read some of the worst type of philosophies, all kinds of things that have killed so many of communism. Just think of the deaths under communism. We're still allowed to read these philosophies. But when it comes to our own bodies, we have to get permission from the government on what can do and what we can put into our own bodies. But the responsibility should be on us. I mean, this doesn't mean that people won't make mistakes. But when the federal government makes a mistake and does harm, it hurts everybody. This is the reason that freedom is so much better. Governments assume that they can be the nanny state and take care of us and that they can protect us from ourselves, which they cannot. But when they make a mistake, it's very, very bad because they do not know what is best for you. They do not know how you should spend your money. You do. If you make your own mistake, you have to suffer the consequences. But after 9/11, we went into Iraq. Also, with days, the very first major piece of legislation was passed, that most onerous piece of legislation called the Patriot Act. As you might guess, I voted against the Patriot Act. And now I'd like to repeal the Patriot Act. But when the bill comes up to repeal the Patriot Act, I won't call it a bill to repeal the Patriot Act. I'm going to call it a bill to restore the Fourth Amendment. No searches without warrants and invading our houses with the military and on and on. The very things the founders of this country fought for and fought a revolution. Now we are deliberately and casually taking it away from the American people. This is what this is all about. Are we going to put up with this? I think symbolically, if we can watch TV and the pictures on the internet to show what TSA is doing to make us safe and secure, and watch the prodding probing and probing and the x-raying of little kids and elderly women and wheelchairs, if we can sit by and say, oh, they're making us safe, so we're okay. If we put up with that, I don't think there's a whole lot of hope for us. And it was very clear to the founders. They said, if you sacrifice your liberties for a little bit more security, you end up with neither the safety or the security or our liberties. I'm afraid that's where we're going. Unless we reverse this, we have to reverse the trend. The Federal Reserve, of course, was established the same year we had the income tax. Major changes occurred during the Wilson administration, the progressive era. The monetary policy changed, the tax policy changed, and also the foreign policy changed. It was Wilson who said, let's make the world safe for democracy. It was all this, idealism. Always wonderful things. We're going to do this for idealistic reason. This is there's a writer now that has coined the word neo-Jacobinism. And it is in many ways, and this is what we're doing around the world. It's always in the best interest. I reduce all this stuff to intervention. I want to have a government that's non-interventionist. Non-interventionist overseas, non-interventionist in your personal life, and non-interventionist in our economic lives as well. But if we understand the whole concept of liberty, this means that people should come together, because everybody's going to use their liberty differently. Everybody has different social values, everybody has different religious values, and the books you read are going to be different, and we should recognize that, and to a degree we do. But then we limit it, and some people say, well, if we give them too much freedom, they're going to have some bad habits, and they're not going to be good, which may be true, but do you want the government to make those decisions, or do you want the individual to make decisions? In the way other people say, well, if we give them too much economic liberty, they're going to waste their money and they're going to do these things, they won't take care of themselves. But I tell you what, if you understand this whole issue, we should be able to bring people together. And this is why so often we see diversity in it. It's not because we agree on how we should run our lives, but we agree that we should have the right to run our lives and spend our own money. The crisis that we're facing today is of great magnitude, and the big question is, will we turn it around? I think that, yes, we will. It's not going to be easy. If we did the right things, it wouldn't be all that bad. Because so often they tell you, people come up and say, I have the solution for you, we did this. Now what we have to do is this, 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 you have to sacrifice. Now, if I come to you and say that I can't, implement these laws tomorrow, have sound money, free markets, property rights, contract rights, and no more wars overseas, protecting your personal liberty and let you keep what you earn, what kind of a sacrifice would that be? I would say that you should welcome that. No, liberty should not be a sacrifice. There can be an adjustment period, but when the government gets involved in the natural requirement for an adjustment, when the Federal Reserve and the government gets things so out of whack, there has to be a correction. Corrections are good, but when you prolong the corrections and deny the correction, you prolong the agony, as we did in our Depression, as Japan has been doing, and as we're doing right now. We're prolonging the agony because we don't allow the correction to occur. The entitlement system has been, something has been well motivated. We have to take care of people, help the people who are poor. They need free education, free medical care, and free houses, and we have to take care of them all. And the government's supposed to give them this free stuff. And the other day when they asked me that on TV, I said, wait a minute, where does the government get it? They don't have anything for free. They have to take it from somebody. That isn't for free. So if we endorse the entitlement system, it sounds good. So let's look at the housing program. It was meant to make sure poor people had houses. So it seemed to work for a while. More and more people had houses. The credit was just created out of thin air, made easy credit. Interest rates were low. And then they had affirmative action type programs where they told the banks, you have to make loans here. You have to do this. You have to make risky loans. So they went and did this, and more people had houses. The price of houses went up. They borrowed against the equity increase of the house. It looked like a perfect money machine. Yeah, until the bubble burst, which was predictable. But guess what happened after the bubble burst? The people who had been making the billions, who branched off into derivatives, the banks and the Fannie Mae's and the Freddie Macs and all those people who were making millions and billions of dollars, they screamed and hollered, there's going to be a depression, there's going to be a depression, you got to bail us out, we're too big to fail. So the politicians rushed, yeah, we got to bail them out, we got to bail them out. And guess what happened? They got bailed out. So the entitlements went to the wealthy who had already been making money. And what happened to the people who had in the middle class? The middle class people lost their jobs and they lost their houses. So it doesn't work. And this is what we have to accept. This is not a good system. Sometimes I think what we need is a lot more confidence in our beliefs and our conviction that freedom actually works, and it does. And we have way too much confidence that if we go to the government, they're going to take care of us. Now, that works to a degree until the pie gets shrunk and the pie isn't there, and that's why there's going to be a lot of fighting. Compromising won't help, and the fighting is going to go on and on until we revise the system and decide what we want is freedom and not more government. More government will just perpetuate all these problems that we've had for so long. So it really will be up to us to do something about it. Freedom was tried, the best example of its experiment was in this country, in our early history, not the last 100 years. There's been a disintegration of our liberties in this country worse than these past 10 years. But freedom is a new idea. It hasn't been around for thousands of years, and yet I'm sure you've been accused and I've been accused of, oh, you want to go back to the dark ages, you want to go back to this gold standard, and you go back and you know what they don't tell you though is what they want to do is go back to tyranny. You know, and tyranny's been around a lot longer than freedom's been around, so freedom is a young idea. Maybe that's why it's so attracted to young people. Freedom is a young idea, and yet we are casting it aside, so we have to pick up the pieces and move forward. We can have a better gold standard, we can have a better understanding of civil liberties, we can have a better economic policies, we have better tools now to communicate with the world. We shouldn't accept this idea of them labeling us in a certain way. And at times they'll say, oh, you don't want to go fight wars, that means you're an isolationist. No, it doesn't mean you're an isolationist. I claim they're the isolationists. They're the ones who want to put sanctions on everybody and cause another war. I want low tariffs, I want trade, I want travel, I want friendship, I want diplomacy. And I think it's about time we announce that the end of the Cold War has arrived and that we ought to have open trade with Cuba. We should go back and forth to Cuba. So we need to reject the whole notion of occupation, occupying other countries. We have a foreign policy that says that we offer them a chance to join us in what we do. We go and so we'll prop up a dictator. So if they're friendly and it's a friendly dictator, we prop them up like we did Mubarak in Egypt for all those years, like what we're doing in Egypt. Authoritarian government. 15 out of the 19 people who hit us on 9/11 came from Saudi Arabia. So we protect them, and they suppress the democratic movement in Bahrain. So we go on and on. We prop up these dictators. But if a dictator turns on us, let's just think, how many years did we? Well, we worked with Bin Laden, of course, and then Saddam Hussein. We worked with him. We gave him Iraq their first nuclear reactor. So, well, when he turns on us, then we have to change our mind. So then we start bombing and killing them. So we either give them money or we bombing and killing them. And I'm offering just something different. Why don't we just talk to them and trade with them? Now, the most preposterous foreign policy is demonstrated with Pakistan. We give money to the dictator at the same time we're bombing them. And then we wonder why it doesn't work. The people get angry at their government, they get angry at us, and yet we have all this collateral damage. It was an utter tragedy the other day when we saw one of our men, you know, kill 16 of Afghanis. But what about the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people who are displaced and killed with our invasions over here? I mean, if we blind ourselves to this, we cannot solve our problems. We have to be concerned about it. I was drafted in 1962. It was when the Cold War was getting pretty hot. That was when the missiles were in Cuba. A slightly different set of circumstances, but then I was in for a total of 5 years. But also the Vietnam War was going on at that period of time. But the French had been in there for approximately 10 years, and we were there for about 10 years. Probably close to, it's been estimated up to 1 million Vietnamese had died. We lost 60,000 plus many, many wounded, and many who were sick for a long time afterwards. So finally they said, well, we can't lose because there will be a domino effect and the whole world will be engulfed by communism. Well, if they had listened to Mises says communism can't work because it's non-viable, and it is true. The Soviet system fell apart, the Chinese became our bankers, and now we're trading partners with the Vietnamese. So we go back and forth. In Vietnam, we invest over there, and they come over here, and things are going much better. So just think for a minute. What was achieved in peace that wasn't achieved in 20 years of killing? When are we going to wake up and say that war is not the answer? In the 1960s, there was a saying that went around that said that if you were 20 years old and you weren't a liberal, you had no heart. But if you were 40 and you weren't a conservative, you had no brain. But I'd like to suggest, why can't we have a heart and a brain all our lives? And I think that's what freedom's all about. I get accused of not caring about my fellow man because I believe in freedom and I'm not willing to use force to get things done. But if we are human, I take it for granted that we all have humanitarian instincts and we'd like to see everybody thrive. So if we truly want to be humanitarian, you have to look at the system that produces the greatest wealth and distributes that wealth more fairly than any other system, and it's the free market. This is where prosperity comes from free market and incentives. But now we don't have a free market. We have a controlled market. We have a controlled monetary system. We have all this deficits. So we don't have that. So if we really care about people, I think we have to argue this case for the free market and civil liberties. But today, I think our confidence has dwindled. But there's a growing number of people now who are saying, you know, enough is enough. We can turn this around. We know how to do it. We've had examples of this. It isn't as bad as it was with the Soviet system. They did not have our same traditions. We've had a tradition. At least if we just, you know, it wouldn't be too difficult. We wouldn't even have to rewrite a whole lot. Maybe we could just send people to Washington that would read the Constitution and obey it. Freedom to me is an attractive idea because I think what we should strive for in our personal lives is excellence and virtue. This would be a personal goal that we have. But true happiness, I think, comes from being productive and taking care of ourselves. When other people take care of oneself or they live off other people, either through the political system, I don't think they have the true satisfaction. And some people who have wealth that feel like they didn't get it fairly end up with a lot of guilt. But I think the true sense of happiness is when people take care of themselves and feel good about it. And you can't do that in a slave system. You can't do this when the government's running everything. And this is why not only gives you the greatest prosperity, I think it would give us the greatest sense of satisfaction to have a system that encourages self-reliance. And we had it before. We've tried it. people did benefit by this, but now we think that what we have to do is keep running to the government and having the government tell us what to do all the time. It hasn't been working very well, so I think what we have to do is restate our conviction and make it loud and clear. We need policies that are designed to bring peace in the world, designed to have sound economic theories, and designed to take care of our civil liberties and allow us to run our own lives as we so choose. Unfortunately, today what drives our politics are the politicians and the lobbyists, and they're driven by power. Power is what they seek, and some of them get satisfaction. There's always going to be some in society who get their whole sense of life by having power over other people. And I guess we'll always have to put up with that. But I'm convinced that the only way you can answer that is with a better idea, understanding what liberty can bring to us, and also prevent the people who think that they can control the whole world by just having more lobbyists. Now, a lot of people think the solution for this is just outlaw lobbying. I don't think it's that simple. I think you have to outlaw the system. As long as the government is auctioning off stolen goods from the people, you're always going to have lobbyists trying to get in there and get their benefits, the benefits of the regulations and the taxes program. But if government is small in protecting our liberties, you're not going to have that problem. But right now, it is a struggle for power, and this is why we don't see a whole lot of difference, if any, between the two political parties. Yes, the rhetoric is different. Some is a little bit better on some issues than the other, but there's really not a whole lot of difference. It's over power is what they do. But what we want is control of our lives. What we want is to, once again, have a society that we can be proud of. Once that we can say, this is the way that we can achieve peace and prosperity, is through a philosophy that we had been introduced to, but we have forgotten. And yet it is something that has been around for a long time. But we have to reverse a lot of things. We'd have to reverse the whole ideas of monetary policy, the foreign policy. We have to reverse this idea that you can write laws by the executive branch and that they can write executive orders and tell people what they can do with total disregard of the Constitution. So this is available to us, and we will have to make a choice. Some people say, well, this is the election, now do or die, this is it. Well, I don't think one election is end all. I think some of these changes are going to come about. I don't think there is any way that they can stop the ideas of liberty as they're boiling out today. So that is the great message. I think there's a better understanding than there has ever been about what freedom is all about. I think there's a big understanding now of the need for this, the need for a different viewpoint, and we don't want more tyranny. We want less. And we know what is there, and it's available. And where I go, and I go to many campuses and around the country, and believe me, these ideas are alive and well, and they're growing. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited when I come to a group like this. It's an enthusiasm that you have, but every one of us has a responsibility. And a lot of people, after I speak, they'll come and say, okay, tell me what I have to do. And you know what I tell them? Do whatever you want to do. And everybody has a role to play. If you accept basically what I'm talking about, you have more responsibility than those who never look at these. So most people never pay much attention. So you're in a small minority of people who care about what's going on and care about political ideas and economic ideas. But if you come to these conclusions that liberty is better than tyranny and you believe in it, there's more responsibility falling on your shoulders. But it's not only like a sacrifice, it's a responsibility. Well, you know what is best for you, you know what is best for your family, you know what is best for your community. And besides, you should get some satisfaction from doing this. One thing, though, is that if you look at only the problems, you can get pretty despondent and say, oh, tomorrow the world's coming to an end. There's going to be more war and more depression. But there are a lot of like-minded people out there. There's a lot of like-minded people in an audience like this. And coming together and working for a cause, you can have a lot of fun doing this too, because you don't know exactly what will come tomorrow. Nobody knows that. But if you know what is right and you believe in it and working for it can give you a lot of satisfaction. So I think the cause of liberty and the cause of peace is worth fighting for. There's every reason in the world to believe that we can restore the greatness of America. Thank you very much. To stay out of wars. I'm trying to get out of it, get the wars to stop, and the American people now. And the American people now are with us on that issue. It's over 70% of the American people said it's time to come home, time to get out of Afghanistan. It has no purpose for us to send more troops over there.
Come home!
And then when you think about the spending, you can't not think about how much we spend overseas. It's approximately $4 trillion worth of debt that has been ended up because of the foreign adventurism of the last 10 years. So even if those individuals out there that still believe that we have to be over there, the other Republican candidates advocate and criticize Obama for not doing enough. They want to do more. And And the whole thing is what are they going to do it with? Where are they going to get the money? How long are they going to be able to borrow it from foreign governments to pursue these wars? So it's coming to an end. All great empires end for financial reasons. We don't have to worry about being attacked militarily. We are strong and we can take care of ourselves. But I tell you what, we're not taking care of ourselves at home very well. And that is what we have to be concerned about. You know, we all, when you go in the military or in the Congress or the presidency, we take an oath to obey the Constitution against all enemies foreign, and we handle that pretty well. But we're supposed to look at the domestic enemies as well, and that's where our real threats are today. We have a government now essentially out of control. We have, for a long time, our presidents have used executive orders to pass laws. Just recently, the president said, well, Congress is acting too slowly. I want this regulation passed. I'll just write an executive order. Well, that's illegal. But the one thing that is legal is if you have... I guess you know there's an election going on. I hear we're going to do very well in California. The media keeps telling me, isn't it all over? Isn't the campaign over? I don't know. It's half over. If you were running a mile, we've done 2 laps. And I sprint at the end. Now, we have a ways to go, but the campaign for liberty is going to go on. You know, our campaign has something to do with a revolution. It has to do with an idea whose time has come, and nobody can stop an idea whose time has come. The idea of liberty is alive and well. It's what made America great, but for some reason or another, 100 years ago, they sort of forgot about it. But it's been revived by a new generation who cares about the cause of liberty and peace. People keep asking me, why do the young people care about it? And I said, I think they are recognizing they're getting a bad deal. What are they getting? A lot of debt they're inheriting, a lot less freedom than previous generations have had, and also they end up graduating from college and they're having trouble getting jobs and they wonder why. Well, there's reasons for it. Believe me, it has to do with the economic and the political system that has been corrupted and has to be changed. You know, we ran into an economic crisis here 4 years ago. Somebody asked not too long ago about the difference between running for president 4 years ago and now. I said, the difference of night and day. Because people recognize that the financial crisis, which was on our doorstep 4 years ago, is here, and it's serious, and it's big. At the same time, it's been many years that I have been trying desperately. Thank you very much.
We love you, Dr.
Michael and Ryan, thank you very much for that introduction, and I'm very pleased to see such a nice crowd and such a nice welcome. Thank you. The revolution is alive and well. Somebody asked me why I'm not on your campus today. I said, well, I heard there were a lot of young people here who cared about liberty. Before I get started, though, I want to introduce my wife and my granddaughter that's with me. My wife, Carol, and my granddaughter, Linda, is behind me.